The topic we'll cover is Waterfall Communications Management, the processes that ensure information flows effectively so stakeholders remain informed and engaged throughout the project. In predictive projects, communication starts with planned communications management. This process determines who needs what information, when they need it, how it should be delivered, and in what format. The output is the communications management plan, which sets expectations for all stakeholders and ensures consistency. The next process is managed communications, which is about collecting, creating, and distributing project information. The project manager uses tools such as status reports, progress reports, dashboards, and meetings to keep stakeholders informed. The third process is monitor communications, which ensures that the information being shared is actually reaching the intended stakeholders and meeting their needs. This step emphasizes feedback and adjustment to maintain effective communication. The exam may also test on communication models. A basic model includes the sender, the message, potential noise that distorts the message, the receiver, and feedback to confirm understanding. You should also know the different communication methods. Interactive communication is two-way, such as meetings and phone calls. Push communication sends information to recipients, such as through emails or memos. Pull communication makes information available for stakeholders to access when needed, such as a shared portal or knowledge repository. Another important exam concept is the communication channels formula, which is n times n-1 divided by 2. This formula shows how the number of potential communication channels grows rapidly as team size increases, making coordination more complex in larger teams. Effective communication also requires tailoring information based on stakeholder needs, considering their level of influence, interest, and role in the project. For predictive projects, there is a strong emphasis on formal, written reports, structured documentation, and hierarchical information flow. This reflects the need for clear records and approvals in more traditional environments. Finally, be aware of common barriers to effective communication, such as language differences, cultural issues, time zones, noise, or selective listening. Project managers must actively work to overcome these barriers to ensure clarity and alignment. So, predictive communications management is about planning clear communication strategies, managing the flow of information, monitoring effectiveness, and tailoring messages to stakeholders, while emphasizing formal documentation and structured reporting. Now we'll go through practice questions that test your knowledge of communication models, methods, channels, stakeholder needs, and barriers to effective communication in predictive projects. Let's get into our first question on this topic. Question 71. During the initiation phase of a predictive project, several stakeholders express concern about receiving inconsistent updates across departments. The project manager wants to ensure communication expectations are clearly defined for the rest of the project. What should the project manager do next? A. Schedule recurring cross-functional meetings to promote transparency and alignment. B. Create a stakeholder engagement plan to manage interest and influence. C. Define what information stakeholders need, when, and how it will be delivered. D. Prepare a communications audit to identify and correct current communication gaps. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is C. This question tests your understanding of the planned communications management process in predictive environments. The focus here is on establishing clear expectations for communication before the project is in full swing. Choice C is the best option because it reflects exactly what the planned communications management process is designed to do. Determine who needs what information, when, how, and in what format. This helps eliminate confusion and ensures consistency from the start. Choice A is incorrect. While recurring meetings can support communication, they are part of managing communication, not planning it. Meetings alone won't resolve stakeholder concerns about inconsistency if expectations aren't clearly defined. Choice B is incorrect. The stakeholder engagement plan focuses on interest and influence, not communication, timing, methods, or formats. It's related, but not the best tool here. Choice D is incorrect. A communications audit is a tool used during monitoring, not planning. It's useful for identifying problems, but this situation is about preventing misalignment, not diagnosing it. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 72. Halfway through a predictive project, stakeholders complain they are receiving inconsistent project updates from different team members. The project manager wants to ensure future updates are reliable, timely, and aligned with the communication plan. What should the project manager do? A. Use approved communication tools to create and distribute formal project information. B. Conduct a stakeholder survey to assess preferred update formats and frequencies. C. Update the stakeholder engagement plan to reflect evolving communication needs. D. Hold a lessons learned session to understand root causes of prior miscommunication. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. This question tests your knowledge of the managed communications process in predictive projects. At this stage, the focus is on executing the communication plan, delivering accurate, consistent information through the correct channels. Choice A is the best option because it aligns directly with the process of managing communications, creating and distributing formal project information using approved methods like dashboards, reports, and structured updates. Choice B is incorrect. A survey may be useful, but this situation isn't about planning, it's about execution. The communication plan already exists, the issue is inconsistent application. Choice C is incorrect. The stakeholder engagement plan deals with managing influence and interest, not the mechanics of communication execution. Choice D is incorrect. Lessons learned are conducted later in the project or phase. The issue here requires immediate correction through consistent execution. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 73. On a predictive project, the project manager notices that although status reports are sent on schedule, some stakeholders remain confused about progress and upcoming risks. What should the project manager do to improve communication effectiveness? A. Increase the frequency of status report distribution to reduce misunderstanding. B. Replace written reports with visual dashboards to simplify the presentation. C. Review feedback and stakeholder responses to ensure communications are achieving intended outcomes. D. Schedule a meeting to reiterate the project's objectives and update the communication plan. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is C. This question tests your understanding of the monitor communications process in predictive projects. It's not enough to send reports. The project manager must ensure that communications are actually being received, understood, and meeting stakeholder needs. Choice C is the best option because it focuses on assessing communication effectiveness using stakeholder feedback, observations, or responses. This aligns directly with the purpose of monitor communications. Choice A is incorrect. Sending updates more frequently doesn't guarantee clarity or effectiveness, especially if the reports are already being misunderstood. Choice B is incorrect. Switching formats may help, but without validating what's not working through feedback, this change could miss the mark. Choice D is incorrect. Revisiting project objectives or updating the plan may be useful long-term, but the immediate priority is to assess how current communications are performing. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 74. During a project meeting in a predictive environment, the project manager verbally assigns a critical task to a remote team member. Days later, the task remains incomplete. When questioned, the team member says they didn't fully hear or understand the assignment due to poor audio quality. Which communication model component caused this issue? A. The sender failed to verify feedback and confirm task understanding. B. Noise interfered with the message, preventing clear understanding. C. The receiver misinterpreted the message due to lack of context. D. The feedback loop was skipped, delaying task confirmation. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is B. This question tests your understanding of the communication model, specifically how messages can be distorted between the sender and receiver. One key element in the model is noise, any factor that disrupts or distorts the transmission of a message. Choice B is the best option because the poor audio quality acted as noise, a classic communication model element. It prevented the receiver from clearly hearing the message and contributed to task failure. Choice A is incorrect. While feedback is important, the core issue in this scenario was the interference during the message transmission, not the sender's failure to confirm understanding. Choice C is incorrect. Misinterpretation may occur, but this situation was caused by distortion during delivery, not by a lack of context or background. Choice D is incorrect. Skipping feedback may lead to confusion, but in this case, the problem started with unclear reception due to noise. Feedback wouldn't help if the original message was garbled. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 75. A project manager distributes a weekly progress report via email to all stakeholders on a predictive project. The report contains key metrics but is not followed up with meetings or confirmation that stakeholders have reviewed it. What type of communication method is being used? A. Push. B. Interactive. C. Pull. D. Passive. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. This question tests your understanding of communication methods in a predictive project environment. PMI defines 3 core methods: push, pull, and interactive. Each is suited to different stakeholder needs and levels of engagement. Choice A is the best option because push communication involves sending information to recipients, such as through emails or reports, without requiring confirmation that it was received or understood. This is exactly what's happening in the scenario. Choice B is incorrect. Interactive communication involves two-way exchange, like meetings or phone calls, where confirmation and discussion are part of the interaction. That's not present here. Choice C is incorrect. Pull communication refers to information stored in a central location like a shared portal that stakeholders access on their own. This report was pushed out, not stored for retrieval. Choice D is incorrect. PMI does not define a communication method called passive. This choice is a distractor and does not represent a valid communication method within PMI's framework. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 76. A predictive project team currently has 7 members, including the project manager. Due to a recent organizational change, 2 additional team members will be added to the project next week. Assuming all team members need to communicate with each other, how many total communication channels will exist after the new members join? A. 36. B. 28. C. 18. D. 21. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is A. Use the communication channels formula. N times N minus 1 divided by 2, where N is the number of team members. In this case, N equals 7 existing plus 2 new equals 9. 9 times 9 minus 1 divided by 2 equals 9 times 8 divided by 2 equals 36 communication channels. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 77. A project manager on a large predictive project receives feedback that a key stakeholder feels overwhelmed by the level of detail in project reports, but still wants to stay informed about major decisions and risks. What is the most appropriate action the project manager should take? A. Summarize the full reports with key highlights and continue sending them on the same schedule. B. Provide tailored updates that reflect the stakeholder's role and level of influence. C. Replace written reports with regular meetings to allow for more interactive communication. D. Create a central location where stakeholders can access updates based on their own needs. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is B. This question tests your understanding of how to tailor communication in predictive environments. PMI emphasizes adjusting the level, format, and frequency of communication based on each stakeholder's role, interest, and influence. Choice B is the best option because it reflects the principle of stakeholder-specific tailoring, sending the right level of information based on what the stakeholder actually needs and can act on. Choice A is incorrect. Summarizing reports is a partial improvement, but continuing the same cadence may still overwhelm the stakeholder and doesn't fully address their feedback. Choice C is incorrect. Meetings are valuable, but written updates are still preferred in predictive projects where formal documentation and traceability are emphasized. Choice D is incorrect. This describes pull communication, which could be helpful, but it shifts the burden to the stakeholder rather than addressing the communication need proactively. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 78. In a predictive project, several department heads have complained that project updates are inconsistent across teams and lack visibility into schedule progress and risk exposure. What should the project manager do to improve the clarity and consistency of communication? A. Allow each team to highlight updates relevant to their area using department-specific templates. B. Increase the cadence of executive briefings to provide verbal summaries of key metrics. C. Assign team leads to contribute summary data for inclusion in weekly project updates. D. Use structured dashboards and status reports to communicate key project data consistently. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is D. This question tests your understanding of how to manage formal communication in predictive environments. PMI emphasizes structured, consistent documentation, especially when communicating with leadership in cross-functional areas. Choice D is the best option because dashboards and status reports provide standardized, visible, and reliable updates across the organization. These tools help eliminate inconsistency and ensure that key information like schedule progress and risk exposure is clearly communicated. Choice A is incorrect. While allowing flexibility might help teams feel comfortable, using inconsistent templates undermines visibility and comparability at the program or executive level. Choice B is incorrect. Verbal briefings may support visibility, but they lack permanence and are less effective than formal written communication in predictive projects. Choice C is incorrect. While team lead contributions can support reporting, relying on informal summaries risks introducing variability and gaps. Formal tools are still necessary for consistency. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 79. A predictive project is approaching a governance milestone that requires approval from a cross-functional steering committee. Several committee members expressed concern that prior updates have been inconsistent across functions and lacked supporting metrics. What should the project manager do to best support informed governance decisions? A. Ask each functional lead to present department-specific updates during the milestone review. B. Use standardized reports to support data-driven governance and reduce reliance on informal updates. C. Schedule one-on-one briefings with key decision-makers ahead of the milestone to build alignment. D. Provide a summary presentation with visual highlights and talking points for discussion. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is B. This question tests your understanding of how structured reporting supports project governance in predictive environments. Effective governance relies on timely, accurate, and standardized data to evaluate performance and authorize progress. Choice B is the best option because standardized reports ensure consistency, traceability, and alignment with governance requirements. They provide decision-makers with objective data, minimizing reliance on informal or fragmented updates. Choice A is incorrect. Departmental updates may reinforce silos and variability and don't guarantee consistency or alignment with governance standards. Choice C is incorrect. While stakeholder briefings help with influence and alignment, they don't replace the need for documented, formal project reports. Choice D is incorrect. Presentations are useful for delivery, but without standardized data-driven reports, they lack the credibility required for governance decisions. Let's move on to the next question if you're ready. Question 80. In a globally distributed predictive project, a key change in vendor compliance requirements was shared via instant message with the subcontractor's team lead. Days later, the vendor delivers non-compliant work, stating they were unaware that the change had been finalized. What is the most likely cause of this communication breakdown? A. The change was communicated too late to be implemented within the vendor's timeline. B. The subcontractor was not involved in earlier discussions and lacked context for the decision. C. The team lacked access to the centralized repository where compliance updates are stored. D. The formal communication was sent using an informal method, leading to misinterpretation. You can pause the video here if you need more time to work on the question. The correct answer is D. This question tests your ability to recognize communication barriers in predictive environments, where formal methods are critical. PMI expects project managers to use structured, traceable channels, especially when communicating changes related to compliance, scope, or contracts. Choice D is the best option because sending a finalized compliance update via instant message, which is an informal channel, increases the chance it won't be interpreted or acted on correctly. Predictive projects rely on formal documentation for critical communication. Choice A is incorrect. There's no evidence that timing caused the breakdown. The issue lies in how the message was delivered. Choice B is incorrect. Context can affect understanding, but here the concern was whether the change was final, not why it was made. Choice C is incorrect. The team lead received the update directly. The issue was not about access to a repository, but the format of the message. Congratulations! You've just completed all 10 questions on communications management in waterfall projects, bringing you to a total of 80 PMP practice questions completed so far in this series. You're doing an amazing job. Keep building momentum and sharpening your exam readiness. If you found this helpful, be sure to like the video and subscribe to PM Aspirant for more PMP prep content. When you're ready, I'll see you in the next topic.